Ladies and
Put that away,
gentlemen.
Duncan. Oh my god. Did not realise we were recording.
Yes, we are. What is up, ladies and gents? It is Dave, Duncan Kyle, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And
I have a giant penis.
and for this
We're
review,
recording, Dave. Oh shit! Fuck.
Duncan has a giant penis, and
Giant penis.
we have been checking out the new album from UK doom metal band Conan.
Gave me 2 extra inches. They can use that if they want as best.
The band's new album, Evidence of Immortality, will be released on August 19th via Napalm Records. This will be album number 5 from Conan, which follows up the critically acclaimed Existential Void Guardian even, from 2018.
I'll do it the other way. It sounded Latin.
Yeah.
Extensio also sounded like a spell from Harry Potter. Extensio.
Isn't that what it did to you?
Yep. Extendio. No, it's extendio, not extensio.
All right,
Come on,
excuse
girl.
me.
Come on, girl.
The album was recorded by bassist Chris Fielding and then
Sounds
mastered by James Plotkin. If you haven't checked it out, we have an interview with Mr. Chris Fielding going live on YouTube. Maybe live already. If it is, I'll put a link below.
This is spoken like a guy that's about to go on holiday and hasn't quite planned out when videos are dropping.
That would be correct, Duncan. That would be exactly correct. It'll probably be after the album review.
I love how he's now trying to justify it. Let the people stew in it, Dave.
If my notes are correct.
There's just one more question. There's just one more.
Anyway, Evidence of Immortality was written between December 2019 and late 2021. As such, it has absorbed a lot of the emotions that were flowing through our lives then, guitarist vocalist John Davis says. The lyrics were written on the eve of the war in Ukraine, so naturally they deal with subjects such as victory and defeat, loss and hope, pain and determination, fear and hatred. Movies such as Conquest, Lord of the Rings, Fire and Ice, Crawl, Beastmaster and Clash of the Titans once again provided inspiration for the themes of the songs.
All bitching, by the way. He's like at the best. Like, me and him need to watch movies together. John, I know, like, we love you. We know that. Remember that time we sat in that bus? Like, come on, let's watch Crawl together. I'll tell you right now. Pants on are options. Right, you know what I mean? We don't have to if you don't want to.
As we maintain our determination to not write about real world events. You want to escape, throw this record on, turn the lights off, and turn it up until your fucking ears bleed. So, our time with Conan goes way back to 2012.
It's flashback, dude.
10 years ago, fucking hell.
I know.
We reviewed the mighty Monos back in 2012 for Rock and Roll Reviews. And if you listen to this album and then listen to this, even though they sit within the same ether, they're a different band now. Like things have changed.
They're going through changes.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
And it's kind of one of the reasons I'm always excited to hear a Conan album, because they do they sit within that doom sludge realm, but they do like to kind of push the boundaries of their formula, and and they extend their reach a little bit into different genres.
Extendio. I'm in a silly mood now. Well, this review's ruined. We might as well strap ourselves in for nonsense.
Yeah. I've got a feeling Duncan wants to get a lot off his chest. I'm going to let him kick this off. Duncan, what did you think of Evidence of Immortality?
Yeah, so when we interviewed Chris, I hadn't listened to this yet. The only thing I'd heard was the first single, and they'd released a single since then, which I refused to listen to because I was like, that saved myself for the album. And like, you guys were throwing buzzwords, trying to get me into it. I was already in, Dave.
I know.
I was there at Monos. They had me at Monos, big man. They had me at Monos. Yeah, like, I can't stress how much this is a heavily biased review. So if you want to write comments about how biased I am, you're just speaking truth to power. I love Conan. The reason Conan are one of the reasons I essentially got into Doom back in 2012. You know, they put it firmly on my radar because, as I joked in our interview with Chris, when Dave had mentioned, well, the interview that I'll drop at some point when Dave can work at his time schedule. Has it already happened or will it happen? Oh, who knows? You know, if you're watching this 3 weeks after it's come out, then who cares? Time is a flat circle. But the thing about it was, like, I always assumption being the mother of all fuck-ups, that basically Doom was crafted in such a way where the bands that are associated with that genre, the big staple bands, are ones that were either really kind of full-on 70s inspired. Your Blue Oyster Cults are a great example of that. Or bands that took it in a more kind of, like the ones that came out of the whole Black Sabbath sort of wave, where you've got bands like Synvitus, and you just assume on some level that's what it's doing, is kind of smoky, kind of fuzzy, roomy guitars with long sections that don't necessarily add up to much. And then I distinctly remember in the same like year listening to Ahab and Conan and literally feeling like my spleen had dissolved. They were just so imposing, like so thick and dense with sound. There was no room, almost claustrophobic. Was it that way where you see like movies where people get trapped underground? If you're me, it maybe arouses you. You're like, well, let's be honest, that's what
Extendio.
You porn's full of that. Is people getting stuck under a bed, and then, you know, just so happens that the only way they can be freed is with the power of the penis. So, like, I don't know, it's a different sort of magic wand. But the Harry Potter reference, Gryffindor, right? The thing about it was that it kind of opened my eyes to a different side of Doom, and then it turned out there was a whole wing of the Doom Mansion that I'd never listened to, and I got heavily involved with it, and you could start picking out where the kind of sludge Doom crossover is, and Conan for the most part exist on that boundary. And even though they have changed their sound like almost album to album in terms of the additions they bring, the small quirks, the changes in tempo in particular, which we're gonna get to here, or the addition of, dare I say, catchy vocal hooks. Like, over time, they've never really strayed from that line, but it's constant growth, and that's what makes them an interesting band in a genre which doesn't always reward bands for like straying off the path. Rather stick to the path and you're safe. Conan are a band that constantly manage to kind of keep their feet in both realms comfortably, which is no mean feat. I think coming into this one, after specifically hearing their first single, which by the way was the smartest move they've ever done, releasing that, because we were all of us about it, mostly because of the powerful drum performance. We'll come back to that. But yeah, like even on that track though, it was huge, imposing guitar and bass, like a wall of sound hitting you, and John doing what John has a great tone. It's kind of somewhere between like melody and like a shout. Like a shout in the fog. It really is like, oh, kind of like that. And it works really well. And they shove the reverb on it, and it's huge and roomy and echoey and boomy, and it totally works. So I had an idea of what to expect from this release, from that single, and I was already loving it. And then I listened to the album, and it's actually not indicative at all about how the album sounds. It's a great snapshot, but it's not really much that they come back to revisit. And case in point is the opener of this album, ladies and gents. A cleaved head no longer plots. Can't, because it's cleaved. Decapitation. And I was listening to it, and like instantly just like drony sounds and like, what are we doing here? And I was like, they need do nothing else than this for 10 minutes and I'd be happy. And about the 2.5 minute mark, fuck it, this riff, by the way. Oh man, it's like, you know, in the movie Conan, interestingly enough, Conan the Barbarian, there's a scene where he's kidnapped at the beginning, and we see him as a child child labour, being strapped in to push this mill round in this sandpit. And then we jump forward 15 years, whatever the time is, and he's full on Arnie by that point, and he's ripped to fuck. Still push. Everyone else is dead, right? Everyone else is dead. It's just him solely pushing this, and the ground on which he's walking is now a holiday. That is the riff. That is, oh man, just fucking, so good, and just this very. That's the thing I don't think they get credit for, is like Doom can be super formulaic, and in a lot of respects Conan are kind of formulaic, but what makes them stand out is every single song has at least one section where you get the most memorable riff. And you're just like, oh fucking yeah, let that wash over me in waves. But this is. We spoke to Chris, and Chris talked about the recording process on this one and how it almost kind of benefited from them not really having an agenda or a plan. Once again, you get more context when you hear him on the interview. But I think it's actually, I appreciated listening to him speak about it and then coming to the album, because I would have had questions here that felt ill-informed, like, what is it they're doing at the end of the first track? Or what they're doing at the end of track 3, and what the fuck is going on with track 6? But he answered them all in that interview, which once again is called cross-promotion for another video. Alright, go and check it out. We jump from A Cleaved Head No Longer Plots, which is a fucking incredible opener at 10 minutes plus. It really sets the stage into Levitation Hoax, which was, an amazing single, which we all fucking loved. And once again, it brings things up. There's a pace switch, which is welcome. Once again, it delivers huge riffage, amazing vocal lines, like dense, packed sounds. And I was like, right, I've caught up with where I was. Let's see where the album's going to go. And then instantly track 3 shortens the pace like almost a third to the opening track, hits you with that attack snare, and you get Rituals of Anonymity. And it's something I appreciate that bands do. The composition of the structure of the album is impeccable on this, which might seem really weird to say when I tell you that the back half of this album is predominantly the album. It really is like two 8.5-minute songs and a fucking 15-minute opus. On a 15-minute album, like, it's 2/3 of the album, but it's perfect because it hits you with all the pace, all the attack, and then we bring it down, and you get Equilibrium of Mankind, which stretches everything out. You just sink into that fucking that warm bath water, and it just feels so fucking good. Once again, it's a track that takes its time to get to its point. When its point is delivered, it's emphatic, and it's just amazing. This is an album where, unlike what Chris said, this is an album here that feels like meticulous details being spent to exactly the song length. Like not a second longer, because if it goes a second longer, it might be too much, and they hold that line. Second single, Righteous Alliance, which, fucking amazing. I honestly, I just wanted to say everything's amazing and nothing sucks. But it really is, again, it's another track that labours its point. It gets to it, and when it delivers it, it gives you all the bang, all the buck. Really interesting use of instrumentation. The drumming on this is fucking great. Once again, as one of those elements from release to release that I feel like he's the guy that gets to experiment the most. But what if I do an attack snare here? And they're like, I don't know about that. But what if there's a bit of blastage? I don't know about that. I really do. And he's the element that is the most transformed. That's not to say that he's like a better drummer than he was back then. It's just I get the feeling that every now and again they loosen things up a little bit for him to get a bit more comfy and do something different. And that speaks to the confidence they have as a band to continually grow. Let's get to it, though. Let's get to it. The fucking balls on these guys. Grief Sequence. 14.5 minutes long.
Not long.
Pretty much one riff. Not quite.
Pretty
But
close.
it's pretty much one riff. A track that builds and feedback and doomy haze and synths. I've just come. Oh man, you talked about it and you gave it. Spoiler alert! You gave it away. Well, Duncan, there's a track with synths, and I was like, all right, cool, going on with synths. I can dig it. And I sat down. I put the headphones on. And I wasn't ready for it. It's a proper analogy, synthy 70s, just fucking dick stroke. It's so good, man. It's so good, and this is a track that lingers. Remember there was that song, Do You Have to Let It Linger? Well, this is a song that definitely has to let it linger. I don't know what's happening. Someone's spiked my drink. I think I've been roofied. It's like it goes and it goes, and I can't even count how many times I was like, and no, and no. No, which might feel frustrating to some people, but I realised that the moment I was trapped in on that was so enjoyable that no was actually like it's such a ballsy choice to go out on an album, which is, I mean, at that point you've had 5 songs. Granted, you've had 5 songs at 37 minutes. But it's really, really cool, and it's a side of the band that we haven't really seen before. This is what we've talked about all the time. It's your last song. Like, go for it. Give us something we haven't heard before. Try something different. Maybe set the stage for what might come. And I'll be honest with you, unlike what Chris is saying, and he would know better, he's in the band, John et al., if you wanted to include more synths in your stuff and branch it in the next album, it would fucking work so well. That being said, if this is all I ever get of that, this is the best way you could have used it. It is the perfect album closer. I absolutely fucking loved it. And then the album was over, and I sat dripping in my own sweat and semen. Maybe mixed. It's difficult when they're both salty. You can't tell. The fluid.
A bit of saliva as well. Just
everything was dripping, Dave. Everything was dripping.
Tears.
Like an ice lolly in the sun. Everything was dripping. And sticky for no explainable reason. But this is. I've talked long, but I think if ever there was an album to talk long on, this is it. They haven't reinvented the wheel. They haven't pushed the envelope to a point where it breaks. What they've done is weirdly release what I would say is maybe their most commercial album, while still being an imposing monolithic album that will dare you to listen to almost 14 and a half minutes of drone and synth at the end, as if it ain't nothing but a thing. This is fucking great. Conan are one of those bands that I reckon will always fly under the radar. I don't think they'll ever get their dues. I don't think they'll ever get their appreciation. I don't think they'll ever be a band that is elevated to some huge main stage somewhere. And if we could get the guys lots of money, I'd be happy with that. That's the thing. I think they're a band that are instantly recognisable, like from the sound.
And I don't know about that. I don't know if I totally agree with that last statement.
I don't think they'll ever be huge.
I think they are moving towards a place where there's more crossover that they could do. I think that they have potential where they could now tour with other bands that aren't doom bands, and I think that could expand.
I think also though that we've seen them live.
Yeah.
They're so fucking heavy that if you're there to see bands and the crossover thing, you might come on board with that. But Conan are such an acquired taste that I can't ever see them being huge. But that's not a slight against them. Part of me loves that kind of that niche level of, I get it, I don't fucking care if anyone else does. And I also think the band have that ethos about them as well. It's why they write interesting music. I never hear any element in here where they feel like they're capitulating to make a bigger crowd. It just feels like we're going in the direction that interests us, and the rest of the world can either choose to catch up or not. And to be honest, either way, Conan will still be doing what Conan does, and that's what makes me happy. I think this is a fucking great album. I think this is the distance they've travelled without necessarily travelling that far from Monos is mind-blowing. But at the same time, and I can't stress this enough, as great as this release is, and you will all love it if you've been listening to me and even remotely interested, see them live, because that is life-affirming and changing. Live, it's a completely different beast. They are like 20 times heavier live than they are on CD, or MP3, or whatever the fuck the kids are listening to now. Vinyl, buy the vinyl, because it sounded wicked. Yeah, this is... I've talked 20 minutes, and I could talk 20 minutes more, almost the length of the album. This is an album written for me. This is about as good as that kind of oppressive, doomy stuff gets, whilst adding tons of new elements and showing me that Conan are a vital band in that genre. Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Nice. Kyle.
If you say ditto or everything that Duncan said, I am going to fucking travel to Norway.
Kyle.
You must have different feelings. You have different feelings.
Like a
Even
doom
if they're
album,
the same.
I'm going to take my time. I listened to this once. The first time, not only once. I listened to it a whole bunch of times. The first time I listened
got
to
my passport here, Kyle. I've got my fucking passport.
You know, I quite like to have a beer with you. So come on, I've listened to this one album and hated it.
Not buying a pint in Norway, it'll fucking bankrupt me.
So I'll make beer.
All right. See,
Don't know what
pissing in
with
the
you. We'll
glass.
figure it
See,
out.
pissing in a glass is not making beer, Kyle.
It is in Denmark.
Right, Conan.
I listened to this the first time, and the first thing that came to mind is this album is 50 years thick.
You try to tell me you can chop it down and count its rings.
Right? It's like a forest of only tree trunks. I couldn't believe the sound they got out of just a couple of guitars and a bass. It was just like, I felt overweight listening to this with headphones on. I had to put on speakers so it didn't weigh me down. It was just, Jesus Christ. I mean, I'd heard the past few things they did, but it never really, I liked it and everything like that, but I never really sort of caught on the whole Conan train until this review, and I'm just like, I'm all the way on board now. Doom is my new favorite genre, and these guys are lighting the torch. I don't know. It's the song titles especially are very inventive and creative. The first one definitely gave me a tiny smile. Like, yeah, you're right there. Yeah, that's very factual. A cleaved head does no longer plot. You're quite right.
Can't, because it's decapitated.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless it's RoboCop, then you build him a cyborg body. I don't know. That's in my brain now.
Well, maybe that's the Conan's next thing. They'll be like, Cyber Conan.
That dubstep Conan album would work so well. Just that slow dub. You know, see if they wanted to do that, man, honestly.
Could you imagine the music video Robo Conan? That'd be great. I'd watch that.
Isn't that just the Terminator?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
But yeah, and I did like the switch up in the middle, because it's all kind of doomy and gloomy and slow to an extent until that third track, Ritual of Anonymity. And I really like the switch up. I thought, that's a really good idea. That is really like genius, bold move. Is just throw some fucking blast beats in there by comparison. And it was like, that's a really good switch up. And then the next two songs are 8.5 minutes long each. But that's the thing. None of this feels like it's 8.5 minutes, 10.5 minutes,
Kyle.
14.5 minutes.
Preach, Kyle.
It's mind bending, because you sat there and going, I've got a quarter of an hour to listen to one song. Let's do this. But then it's gone. You're like, where the fuck did the time go? That was incredible. Holy shit. And yeah, I don't know. The production on this one. I know we spoke to Chris beforehand and he gave me all his secrets.
In fairness, most of those secrets came in after we hit stop. So, he really went hardcore. This is how I get my bass sound.
Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna steal that. But I told him to his face that I would, and he seemed alright with it. So, or he's a really good liar. Who knows?
You wait to see what happens when your fucking bass amp explodes, and he's like, another one bites the dust.
I'll send him a tweet like, look what you fucking did. I did listen to this a few times before we did that interview, so I was already impressed. There was nothing that he said there that I didn't really like. There was a couple of things like, oh yeah, okay, but like, my God, what they did on this with the production is fucking incredible. Everything I knew from the get-go was like, there's no click tracks. It's all raw and natural and as God intended. But it's all still very well defined. You can pick up everything. Yep. It's a proper mix. It's not like nothing's in its little box. It's everything is very gelled together, but you can still tell what's guitar and bass and all this. It's just, it's nigh on perfect is what I would call this mix, this production. For what Conan is and what they're doing, this production is bang on.
Once again, what stress, this is the same guy that last year produced one of the most immaculately polished albums of the year,
right.
And Boss Colloid. It's like he's a really, 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 really talented guy.
Yeah.
Like, really talented.
That's the thing, he knows when to polish and when to rub some shit in it and when to do this and that. It's like Conan sounding like Boss Colloid probably wouldn't work as well as it did on this album. Because
although if they toured together, I would get off on that so fucking hard, man.
You
I just put Boss Colloid on everything, don't I?
Yeah.
Like Boss Colloid in every tour. Just plug them in. Watch it go.
But yeah, let's start with the song title of Grief Sequence. That is a hell of a song title, starting right off the bat. I don't even know what he's singing about, if he's singing at all. I'm not really sure, because I go through that song the 7 times and listen to this album, and I come out the other end wearing half the clothes I had on before, covered in sweat, a little bit of blood, not sure if it's mine, in a field. And I'm like...
Holding for some reason, toilet roll on fire.
Yeah.
When did this get here?
This time the church isn't burning, but there is a smolder. And I'm not sure what happened, but I just... that addition of the synths right at the end of the album, they just held off and then they just threw it in there right at the end on that ridiculous old school doom slow fuck track. It's just it's the icing on the cake, isn't it? I just loved it. Just took me by surprise the first time I heard it. I was like, that's a fucking synth, that is. That's awesome. That's a red one. I love it. So yeah, I mean, as you can tell, I enjoyed this quite a lot. For someone that's relatively new to Conan, I now have to go and kill that mosquito in a minute. But
you need to go and see them live if they ever come to Norway. Trust me.
I will come to Scotland in November to see them live. After what you guys have told me and the window glass smashing. On the planet. Yeah,
they're the heaviest band. I'm not even saying that as a joke. They're the heaviest fucking band on the planet. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, I have to see them. I have to see them live. I don't really go out and see gigs much anymore, but that I have to go and see. I have to. After this, 50 years thick. As you sound like. And
David,
cool.
What did you think of a band that you don't like?
What can I say?
With albums that you're not interested in, and doom, a genre that you don't care about.
I like how Dave is now in my seat. Usually it comes to me last. I'm like, well, you've said everything. And he's like, how's it feel to be Kyle, Dave? Yeah, sucks, doesn't it?
I'll be honest, right? See the last album, Existential Void Garden, I enjoyed it.
Yep.
I thought there was a lot of standout moments in it, but there was moments I was just like, yeah, it's cool, it's all right. It wasn't my favourite Conan release. I thought it was all right. This album, however, what a follow up! Like this is the way to raise the bar, gentlemen. Like you've heard it, like from Monos to now, like there's been an increase in different tempos and a new mix of styles and rhythms just to keep things interesting. And again, that focus on just giving you enough variation to stop anything becoming too repetitive is here on Evidence of Immortality.
Can you think of any other band, Dave, that you would get excited about as much with the inclusion of they've got an attack snare? You know what I mean? It's like such a rudimentary thing, but on a Conan album, it's like, this is genre changing. This is fucking, the Big Bang has been proved.
Yeah.
It's just so remarkable.
Yeah, I think it's just that the level of extreme change from Monos, which is just, it's fairly like one tempo all the way through and similar type groove. don't get me wrong, I fucking love that album. It's one of my favourite Conan releases to date. But just the small changes and, you know, subtle things they make all the difference here. You've still got the hefty doom riffs, the gritty kind of sludge tone. There's a bit of thrash in here. You've got, as you said, a bit of blast beats. You know, it's driving forward in the more intense parts. But regardless of what style they pull in, they always come back to that kind of signature Conan groove, and it's just fucking massive on this album. Every track is just loaded. You know, as you said, there's a moment where it's just like, what the fuck? Yeah. It sounds just colossal, and it's hard not to be totally just hooked in by it. That opening track, that A Cleaved Head No Longer Plots, you know, it's just packed with monstrous riffs and drums. They don't really go above second gear on that track, you know what I mean? They just keep it tight and flowing the whole way through. But there's some nice kind of like lead guitar parts coming in the background, which we don't hear much of from Conan at all, probably because they're a three-piece, and you know it's more difficult to create live or recreate live. But I thought it was really cool just to kind of accent the main riff. And I loved, like it's same as you said, Kyle, regardless of how heavy the production is, that bass is just like cutting through the mix. No problem at all. Like, and
shouldn't.
Again, I mean, well, if you go back to Monos, like you can hear the bass in the background, but there's not a huge amount of kind of clarity on it like there is here.
That's what happens when you get a bassist to mix the entire album.
Yeah, true.
Right, Kyle, let's not pimp yourself here. Let's
now I've mixed it like bass. Call me.
Banner coming along the bottom of your phone.
Levitation Hoax, though, that's where they kick into next gear. This is much more aggressive from the off. You've got the thrashy riffs, there's bits of blast in there again. So again, giving you a different side to the band and a different level of intensity. But that track also shows this catchy side to the band as well. I was just like, and I mentioned it before when we heard the single, but I was like, afterwards I was just like, I am the unborn son, just like, totally, I was like chanting it like as I was walking about the house. I was like, this is totally, let's get a live gig. People are just going to be screaming that back. Like there's it gets absolutely stuck in your head. And again, towards the end of the track, there's that kind of additional layer of the atmospheric guitar and the kind of shrieks towards the end. A really cool effect as well. I think it may be an RTG pedal, maybe, if I'm not
insider knowledge, insider trading, ladies and gents.
My ear was just picking that up.
But you better put this out now ahead of that other video. Gonna have to now.
And I think as the album goes on, I started to realise like how good Conan are at this point in their career. Like every track gives you something different to grab onto, you know, whether it's like the almost like kind of punkier tones of Ritual of Anonymity, or that crushing slowness of Equilibrium of Mankind, which is just life ending. And this album, it doesn't have the grindcore curveball that they had on the last release, which was just like, what the fuck?
Why not, Dave?
But instead, they give you that huge surprise on the closing track, that grief sequence, which, as you guys have said, just like kind of like caught me well off guard when it kicked in. I was like, what's going on here? Like this pure synth-laden album closer and it's an absolute stroke of genius. Like, we spoke to Chris about it after our interview, and they brought back like an older member of the band, a guy called Dave Perry, to help out with the synths on that track, and it's just
currently lives in Denmark and has apparently a room full of like Moogs and shit like that, and I was just like, let's go and visit him.
So cool, man. It's very, very retro and quite gothic. I was like, this is almost like if Ghost made like a Doom track. It's just like fucking, absolutely loved it. As you said, it's not even like it's like packed with loads of riffs or anything like that. It's 15 minutes long, but the atmosphere and that kind of darkness about it is just, I thought it was a perfect way to close the album.
Yeah, clings to you. You know what I mean? It's a track that really, that's why, like, I think you're right, Kyle, when you come out the end, there is a feeling of, like, not like being fully disorientated, but a feeling of that song's on me. Like physically feel like it's on you.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier about the vocals that they were tracked on the eve of the whole invasion in Ukraine. So obviously hearing something like that, you know, as kind of tragic as that is, it must have had some kind of effect on the mood or the mind frame going into to record vocals. And I think, like, I don't know if it is that, but like, his vocals are very hostile on this release.
Yep.
Like, sounds super pissed off on this release, probably the most pissed off I've ever heard him. And I think it just adds, it just elevates the whole sound, to that already massive sound they have. It just sounds even more aggressive. I think if you're a fan of Conan and what they do, then this is exactly what you want from the band. It's heavy, it's groovy, it has that trademark sound and the vocal tone. Production is just devastating, and there's riffs, just soul crushing riffs. The riffs for days on this album. It's not like a huge jump from the last album, but I found this one even more enjoyable than the previous record. And the previous record did really well. For some reason, I just didn't connect with it as well as some of the others, but I thought this was fantastic. So, ratings for Evidence of Immortality. Duncan, what are you thinking?
I mean, it's 5.
I mean,
like, I can't talk for an album for 20 minutes and talk about how hard my dick was and my semen-crusted chest, and not give it a fact. This is everything the band kind of promised back in the day and more. You know what I mean? It's like this is why it's important to get behind the band early. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really hook onto them, because the journey they've been on, the J word, shot. The journey they've been on as musicians, but specifically the journey they've taken as musically, has been incredible. And whilst this is not like I've not flipped the envelope over, I'm listening to Evidence of Immortality compared to an album like Monos, it does kind of feel like the band might just be starting to hit their stride. It's fucking mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. This might just be the start of phase 2. I don't know, I'm bringing all our reviews from tonight into one. And I'm in for it. I genuinely think, even if you have never listened, this is your entry album to Conan. Yeah. If ever there was.
I think it is their most accessible release,
I think this is the entry album. I think if you listen to this album and you, like us, agree it's fucking amazing, or awesome, or whichever word you want to say, because you're too cool to say amazing. At the end of that conversation, there is a back catalogue of albums which get more challenging musically and heavier in parts, and that's not to diminish anything they're doing. This is fucking boss. Cannot wait to see it live. An emphatic 5, and did my top 10 list for the year get more difficult? I think so. So yeah, love it. Nice. Love it.
Kyle?
I mean, take a guess. It's definitely a 5, right?
3.5.
Middle
3.5, yeah.
2.
End of the loaf, yeah.
So
end of the loaf. 5.
Good end of the loaf.
Good end of the
loaf. This is awesome. This is top tier Conan for me.
Yeah.
I was trying to kind of place it in their back catalogue as well. I was like, where would this sit? I was like, okay, it's better than that album. It's better than this one. Like, I thought, like, Revengeance and Existential Void Garden, a lot of good standout moments, but I think this is the most consistent they've done in a long time. There's literally nothing to dislike on this album for me, so it has to be a 5. It has to be.
A 3-0.
305s. Conan, Evidence of Immortality, out August 19th on Napalm Records. Check this album out. Links below to the band's Facebook, pre-orders. Have a listen to singles, have a listen to the album, let us know your thoughts. And
check out the interview.
Check out the interview.
It's an hour of us discussing a lot of the shit we've just talked about here for 40 minutes.
Yes. Thank you for sticking with us. That was the extended version of the album review. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Fucking voice is gone, actually.
Yes.